Alright, my apologies, you guys. I was trying. Very noisy out, so it's okay, we will remain here for now. I don't feel like shouting too crazy this morning. Alright, and I know what you're thinking. Although we are on part 13 of 2 Kings, we are not done. I do believe we will have one more part, just so I don't inundate you with so much information in this little section here. Okay, and we do have quite a hefty quote, so let's go ahead and get right into it, and we'll try to tie this into our 2 Kings part 13. Let me go ahead and begin. Blessed Cecilia, appear in visions. To all musicians, appear and inspire. Translated daughter, come down and startle, composing mortals with immortal fire. O dear white children, casual as birds, playing among the ruined languages, so small beside their large, confusing words, so gay against the greater silences of dreadful things you did. Weep for the lives your wishes never led. All right. So this is a very small portion of the anthem for Saint Cecilia's Day. For the anthem of Saint Cecilia's Day, it was dedicated to Benjamin Britten and set to music by Britten as a hymn to Saint Cecilia, originally poetically put together by W.H. Audine, 1907 to 1973. And just to give you a little bit of background, Saint Cecilia was the patron saint of musicians and composers, really, all things music and people who create music. And she was known for being a woman of status who was eventually essentially martyred for remaining in virginity, in commitment with the Lord, even through her marriage. Okay, she was martyred essentially for wanting to stay celibate. So that's a little background on Saint Cecilia, and we have her, being the inspiration to many through music. Okay, so how do we tie this in? Really, the thing that stuck out to me in this small portion that I quoted was so gay against their greater silences of the dreadful things you did. Weep for the lives your wishes never led. So this sets a mood here, especially for me, really about the outcome of Israel and the outcome of Judah combined. So we have this new king. He starts ruling very, very young, at the age of 8. And he's a very good king in the eyes of the Lord. He does everything right. He just follows the Lord wholeheartedly, as we will read. And he comes across some information that the kings before him were not so great, and they brought great evil over the people of Judah. So the Lord explains to him through a prophet and such that Judah will be removed just like Israel will be. And I'm still angry, I'm still upset about the things that Israel and Judah had committed. So this portion here of weep for the lives your wishes never led reminds me of, even all the children of Judah and Israel who have to go through the suffering due to their ancestors, due to their parents, due to their grandparents' mistakes. We have a new modern term called generational trauma. This is kind of what it reminds me of as well. Also here, this is a woman, right? Blessed Cecilia is a woman, and she's an inspiration to many, and she was on her own path. We also mention here a woman prophet. It's very rare that we come across a woman prophet who is named and referenced and held to a high standard. So she's in here. We'll go ahead and briefly touch on what the news she brings. Okay. So without too many interruptions, let's go ahead and get into chapter 22. It's going to be short, not too crazy today. Of course, let me just check the battery on this. Alright, we have a good amount left. Alright, chapter 22. Josiah was 8 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 31 years. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, and followed completely the ways of his father David, not turning aside to the right or to the left. He said, "Go up to Hilkiah the high priest, and have him get ready the money that has been brought into the temple of the Lord, which the doorkeeper has collected from the people. Have them entrusted to the men appointed to supervise the work on the temple, and have these men pay workers who repair the temple of the Lord. But they need not account for the money entrusted to them, because they are honest in their dealings." Alright, so this time here he is on a mission, right? It's a little bit later in his reign. He wants to go ahead and restore the temple. As we know, time takes a toll on everything, right? And we did know that, some of the gold and things like that, the nicer, finer objects were removed from the temple. We have probably just some wear and tear over many years that had taken place. So he wants to prepare the temple, and like many of the kings before him, they use the money that's entrusted, taken as taxes, really. We complain about taxes, but they've been around since this time and even before. So they take the money from the taxes, essentially, and he wants to prepare the temple of the Lord. And he has full faith in everybody following his orders. And I might be going back to my rightful throne. There we go. Hi. Yes, you need to be so quiet, please. Okay. Come, sit on my lap. Alright. Anywho, as they were restoring the temple, the high priest finds a book. It says here, "Then Shaphan the secretary informed the king, 'Hilkiah the priest has given me a book.' And Shaphan read from it in the presence of the king. When the king heard the words of the book of the law, he tore his robes." Okay, so this moment, right, it's a little bit in the dark about, what is this book? What's in this book? It does say the book of the law, right? The book of the law. So that was the law essentially given to Moses, or the Torah, right? The first 5 books. So they're learning about all the things forbidden, right, that they aren't supposed to be doing. And the king has this realization that, oh my goodness, this is what's been going on, for years and years. My father and my father's father had dealt with these issues within the kingdom. All the things that we're not supposed to be doing, we're doing wrong, essentially. So he tears his robes. He's very, very upset and burdened with this information. Not like he did not know the law of Moses. Of course, he had the high priest that was instructing him, and he was very dedicated and devoted to the Lord in the right way. But also this book had information, just how we talk about, the book of Annals, right? The past kings and exactly what they did. All those details were laid out and read to him, so that information was a lot for him to take in. Because as we remember, he became king really young, so he was not of age to really understand what was going on before his reign. So let's go ahead and continue. It says, "Hilkiah the priest, Achim, Akbor, Shaphan, and Josiah went to the prophet Huldah, who was the wife of Shallum, son of Tikva, son of Haras, keeper of the wardrobe." Alright, she lived in Jerusalem in the new quarter. Okay, because she's a woman, we need to throw that in here, some extra details, right? Who her husband's father was, and of course where she lived. She's a woman of status, right? Just hearing this, it sounds, nice and royal. I could even be wrong, but she lived in Jerusalem in the new quarter. Alright, this is Huldah, Prophet Huldah. So they go and inquire of her about, what is it to what can they do, right? Essentially, what can they do? What was the gravity of the mistakes the kings before this current king? What was the gravity of their mistakes? How can we repair? What will become of us, essentially? So she said to them, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Because they have forsaken me, and burned incense to other gods, and aroused my anger by all the idols their hands have made, my anger will burn against this place, and will not be quenched. In regards to the king, your eyes will not see all the disaster I am going to bring on this place." So, of course, her prophecy is longer than what I have here, right? There's a long list. There's a few things, more than a few things, that the Israelites had committed that she goes ahead and lays out and discuss, much like what was in the book. But she goes ahead and really, goes into detail, saying, yes, God is upset. God will, burn his anger against this place, and it will not be quenched. Although this king, since he's been humble, he's been living in humility, he's been honoring the Lord with his full heart, mind, and soul, spirit, what have you, he will not see the disaster. It will be after he passes. So with that news, the king stood by the pillar and renewed the covenant in the presence of the Lord. He also tore down the quarters of the male shrine prostitutes that were in the temple of the Lord, and the quarters where women did weaving for Asherah. The king asked, "What is this tombstone I see?" The people of the city said, "It marks the tomb of the man of God who came from Judah and pronounced against the altar of Bethel the very things you have done to it." Okay, so I did leave out quite a few parts here as well. Not only after hearing this news does the king, tear down all the things that were an abomination to the Lord and are an abomination to the Lord, but he really goes through the whole region of Judah, taking down high places, destroying things. He even desecrated grave sites. He dug up the bones and burned the bones. But he sees this marked tomb here that he stops, right? And this is why I do like the Bible, because it is very theatrical and it is very cinematic, if you will. He stops. There's almost a little bit of a whiff, if you will, of foreshadowing. Okay, he sees this tomb, and the people tell him, this was a man of God from Judah, and he pronounced against the author of Bethel the very things you have done to it. So he did the same. He had the same heart that you had. And he kind of just says, right, leave it alone. He said, don't let anyone disturb his bones. So he has a moment in his rage and rush of, destroying everything, really just going through the town and giving it a clean sweep. He has this moment of calm, of peace. He almost is foreshadowing kind of his own, end. He senses that it's coming soon, and this is essentially why this is here, because it doesn't say who the man was. I tried to Google it. It's not there. I don't know who this man was. So why they put that in there? It's that moment of like, okay, I kind of did everything that I came here to do. Kind of gives a little bit of closure, if you will. Nevertheless, the Lord did not turn away from the heat of his fierce anger, which burned against Judah, because of all that Manasseh had done to arouse his anger. So again, we're discussing the king that came before, right? So his father, essentially, Josiah's his grandfather, Manasseh, and Ammon, right? Ammon, I don't think he was so good either. See, I already forget, but we had Ammon before. I think he ruled for that very short time. Manasseh was the one that really brought all the dastardly deeds back. Interesting too, because we do have one of the sons of Joseph, his name was Manasseh, and he did become a half tribe, remember? But anyways, let's go ahead and continue. That might not be related as well as I think. Again, with the common names, but because all that Manasseh had done to arouse his anger. So the Lord said, I will remove Judah also from my presence as I removed Israel, and I will reject Jerusalem, the city I chose, and this temple about which I said, my name shall be there. So he's taken it all back. This is his moment. He has taken it all back. Again, if you want to read through this part of 2 Kings, it does show the gravity. It does show, certainly, how many things that King Josiah had to go through and take down and remove and, realize, oh my goodness, we're not living the life that I thought. So, it was a lot, right? To kind of give this sense of clean sweep, refurbish, removing things that are not serving the one God, right, or yourself, really and truly. So, while Josiah was king, Pharaoh Necho, king of Egypt, went up to the Euphrates River to help the king of Assyria. King Josiah marched out to meet him and killed him at Megiddo. This is a little confusing because it sounds like he killed the king of the Pharaoh, but that wasn't the case. I think I might have messed that up here. Bear with me, you guys were pretty much at the tail end. Josiah. Okay. Help the king of Assyria. King Josiah marched out to meet him in battle, but Necho faced him and killed him at Megiddo. Okay. Marched out to meet him. In battle. But Necho faced him and killed him at Megiddo. Okay, so yes, it sounds like Egypt and Assyria, right? They had the alliance because Egypt went up to the Euphrates to help the king of Assyria. And I guess King Josiah was having his last hurrah. He wanted to go face them in battle. But Necho, right, the Pharaoh of Egypt, went ahead and killed him. Okay, so that is the end of Josiah, right? He did all he needed to do. He did all he needed to do. And the people of the land took Jehoahaz, son of Josiah, and anointed him and made him king in place of his father. So we have another Jehoahaz, okay? I will go ahead and add that to the chart. But that is it, right? That is it. Of course, it says, Josiah's servants brought his body in a chariot from Megiddo to Jerusalem and buried him in his own tomb. Okay, and then the people took his son, right, as king. So that's it of that part. And, we talk, how is this, still going on, right? The Lord, I just want to tell you, the Lord, remember, he recommended no kings. Don't do it. And then finally, right, he gave the people what he wants. He tries to, give us guidance and influence us. In the times where it is successful, it is surely a blessing, but sometimes we just don't listen. So we wonder, how did all this disaster become of Israel and Judah for God to actually turn away from? He said, don't do it. And they went ahead and elected kings anyway, right? They had like the rulers and the leaders of, not Leviticus, Numbers, right? Numbers and Deuteronomy. What else? We have Joshua. Wow, we actually made like a lot of good progress. Judges. I'm sorry, that's what I'm looking for. Judges. We had the rulers and the leaders of Judges. Then we go into the kings after that. 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel. than 1 Kings, 2 Kings. But the Lord, very, very at the beginning, he said, don't do this. It's just, not going to end well. And now we see it took hundreds and hundreds of years to go ahead and realize, that probably wasn't such a good idea. Because look what became of them. Not necessarily through the poor leadership, but through everything else, the distraction, just the sheer nature of having distraction, looking elsewhere a lot of the time. When you have a king, you're looking to the king. You're militarized. And, make that king the rightful king, God alone. End of story. That is 2 Kings for you. We're almost done. We have just one more section to go after this, you guys. Thank you for listening. I will catch you later. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.